Our theme for the month of April is April showers. Although, yeah, I think we've experienced a little bit of April floods. So there's your abundance again, you know. So the inspirational talk this morning is about blessed relationships. And we are tuning our attention to the April showers because we're talking about showers of blessings. Blessings that rain upon us, that fill us, that flow from us. Good, beautiful blessings. If we but open our hearts to these experiences, because they're always taking place. We're going to explore blessings that are available to us if we open our hearts in the context of relationships, which we are all in all of the time. Is really, and when no one's in your house and you're by yourself, you're still in relationship with you. It's constant. We're always in relationships. So I have a quote from Ernest Holmes from his Science of Mind textbook. He said, life is a blessing or a curse according to how we make use of it. We could also say that relationships are a blessing or a curse. It's how we make use of them. Maybe you might have this, maybe some people might have relationships that don't exactly feel like blessings, maybe, where we don't really feel very spiritual when we're in them or with those people. So, what if, for all these challenging relationships, we construct bridges instead of walls? What if we build each other up instead of tearing each other down? What if we form circles to include instead of fences to keep out? What kind of relationships would we have then? What kind of world would we live in then? I think we might say a blessed world and blessed relationships. As I was thinking about this talk, especially the question, what if we form circles instead of fences? A limerick kind of came to my mind. I don't really do limericks, but this one came and I had to look it up. Thanks to the genius of Google, I found it. God bless Google. And it was this. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. So we drew a circle that took him in. So our question this morning is, how do we draw a circle to take people in? Because it's really easy to exclude, but take them in even when we might not agree with who they are and what they are saying. This is a blessed relationship. Well, we took a look at some ideas for that, but first, briefly, I want us to look at this, not really briefly, but the concept of love. What is love really? To me, I thought about that a lot. And to me, love is really respect and honoring. So I have a few examples about that concept. New Testament says that God is love. Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind said, he quotes, I'm going to quote him, love is the self-givingness of the spirit through the desire of life to express itself in terms of creation. Love is free from condemnation, even as it is free from fear. Love is a cosmic force whose sweep is irresistible. I love Ernest Holmes. He is like a poet. He is. Author of Real Love, Greg Bauer, wrote, love is desiring the happiness of another without regard for what we will get in return. We're not talking, I want to make this clear, we're not talking about codependency here. We're talking about healthy love, healthy love, healthy love. And about this kind of love, Hafez, a 14th century poet, wrote, even after all this time, the sun never says to the moon, you owe me. And look at what happened because of that. It lights the whole sky. We have lights. There is no expectancy when we truly have that pure essence of love. And I understand that kind of love completely at the level of spirit. It's easy to say at the level of spirit. It's God's only desire for us is to be happy. It showers us with blessings and goodness all of the time. Without a demand, without a question, without rerouting or even requiring or even asking for anything back. It's always available and nothing is expected in return. And that's my definition, really, of grace. Ernest Holmes wrote, love points the way. The law makes it possible. We're talking about the divine law. We allow love to guide our lives. It gives us direction. When we have a loving heart, the spiritual laws simply manifest what is impressed into it. Remember, the law of God, divine law, is neutral. It can only, that's a law of attraction. It can only give us back what we put into it. Without question. Without question. Then we might ask, but then, how does this apply down in the trenches, where the human realm is? Lucy from Charlie Brown had the perfect quote. I think I said it the other day. I love mankind. It's people I can't stand. It's a great quote. Sometimes we feel that way. Sometimes. So we're in the trenches. We're in the human realm. So now that we have defined love, how do we draw a circle around our relationships? All of them. Someone once said, love is not for the lazy persons. To exist in its fullness, sometimes it demands very precise and strong gestures. I want to give you 5 very precise and strong gestures. So be prepared to have your relationships blessed as we look at allowing love to point the way so that the law can make it possible. So we're going to take, what we are going to do is we're going to take the word circle and as an acronym, and we're going to use each of the letters. So there's 5, and I know that circle has 6 letters in it, so bear with me on this. We're going to get to all 6, but I'm going to give you 5 right now. So, C, the first, compassion. Having an understanding for empathy for another person's feelings and their experiences. Being compassionate means asking, how can I understand this better? Being compassionate means to look at every act of another human being as a call for love. That's, of course, in miracles, and that can be challenging. But I have this great story. I love this story. It's a true story. It's kind of so unbelievable for us in the United States to even comprehend this, but it is an example of real compassion. There's a certain tribe in Africa that believes that every soul has its own vibration. its own harmony, in fact, its own song, which expresses its unique flavor and purpose. So when a woman in the tribe is pregnant, she goes out into the wilderness with a few friends, and they get together and they pray and they meditate together until they hear the song of the child. They attune to it. They sing it out loud. Then they return to the tribe and they teach it to everyone else. This is pretty insane and pretty beautiful. When a child is born, that song is sung. When the child enters education, that song is sung. When the child passes through initiation to adulthood, that song is sung. In fact, any significant transaction in the person's life, that song is sung. And there is another occasion, this is interesting, upon which the villagers gather to sing the person's song. If any time during that person's life he commits a crime or apparent social act, the person is called to stand in the center of a circle, and the people in the community form this circle around them. And then the villagers sing the song to them once again. Even in something that looks like a crime, they surround them. The tribe recognizes that correction for antisocial behavior will always be love. It's love and the remembrance of identity. That song is their identity. What a beautiful way to live life. So now I'm going to get on with, well, I and R in circle, we're going to get to later. Right now I want to go to the other C, commit. Commit to yes, only if you mean it. Clarify the confusion of the idea about being loving. Unconditional caring about another person's happiness. That's the clarification. When we care about another person's happiness, and that means saying yes to everything. Bear with me. If you can't say it with the pure desire for them to be happy, then you are not really loving. You do not have their happiness in mind. So go deeper within yourself. Why are you saying yes? Are you saying yes to keep the peace? Are you saying yes to prevent someone else being upset or disappointed in you? Looking good in someone else's eyes so that someone will, or you say it because someone might not love you if you were not saying yes to them all the time, and perhaps they might leave you, which could be a blessing, but not always. Leave that over there. Actually, it's all part of it. It's all part of us. Every relationship, every idea that we have about people in relationships are part of us, because the common denominator in all of it is ourselves. So, if so, then you really have the best interest. You don't have the best interest in your heart and your mind if you say yes to keep the peace. Say yes to pacify someone else down. You have yours, and that's not unconditional love. You have your best interest in heart when you do that. And there's a little hint to why relationships often keep going downhill. You keep giving and giving and giving, maybe you can relate to that, but it never seems to be enough. The other person is never satisfied and keeps demanding more and more. And here's why. You have not given them the one thing they really need. to be truly loved. And that's not putting blame on you in any way. It's like giving, here's a great example, like giving only chocolate to a starving person. And giving, and giving, and giving more of that chocolate. And they want more. Why? Because the chocolate never really satisfied their hunger. It might taste good for a while, but ultimately it's not going to satisfy that deep, gnawing hunger. And finally, they say, exhausted and completely wiped out of chocolate, I can't give you, when you say this, I can't give you any more. I cannot give you one. I've given you all I have. You never really gave the one thing that they needed, love, the real kind of love. And that's honoring yourself, too, in this. It is more loving to say no than it is to say yes and not really mean it. A loving no is much more powerful. So this C is to commit to saying yes only if you can, because you genuinely care about the other person's happiness. That's when you say yes. Sometimes a loving no is the correct answer. That brings us to L, letting go of expectations of other people. You never get to control anyone else's behavior. Although a lot of us might try. Some of us, we're standing in front of the microphone, might try. Have you ever wished that somebody would just change? And how did that work for you? Right? Does your judgment make things any better? Then it's time to let go and get over it. Move on. So, and if it really drives you that crazy, someone else's being, you can love them but not have them in your life. That's what I have found really sometimes is necessary. And still have that love when you think of them. Because they're feeling, on some level, that vibration. So letting go of those expectations, that moves us to E, expand your thinking. Expand your thinking from I am right, I am willing to listen and understand you. And how about something like this, which is very extreme? I am wrong. That sometimes takes a lot to say, oh, I am wrong about something, to people that never think they're wrong about anything. And here's the $1 million question. I ask myself a lot, am I doing this to be right or to be loving? Right or loving? When you expand your thinking from I must be right, you widen that circle and you move from defending to dialoguing. Defending always feels bad when you have to defend your actions all of the time. To move into that place of understanding. You don't have to agree, but understanding. Then you widen that circle. Defending is a struggle of opinions and viewpoints. Dialoguing is about sharing and understanding, and that's where the magic happens. Ask yourself, would I rather be right or loving? And remember, it's only the loving answer that will bring you true happiness and blessed relationships. None of this, I want to put a disclaimer in here, none of this applies to an abusive relationship. None of it. Mentally or physically or emotionally. Sometimes you cannot include those people directly in your circle, but you can still send them love from afar. So before going to I and R, which are the last two of circle, let me summarize. C for compassion. I and R we're doing next. C, to commit to saying only yes if you truly desire the other person's happiness. And L is for letting go of expectations. E, expand your thinking from having to be right. So I and R is together. I'm responsible. I'm responsible. I saved it for the last because it's a biggie. Taken together, when you put them together, I'm responsible. And it's not blaming in a negative way, but the fundamental belief of science of mind is that we are responsible for our experiences. No matter how much we want to cover that up and make excuses, ultimately, no one else is responsible. Life is either a blessing or a curse, depending on what we make of it. So this article I want to end with, you know of Ho'oponopono. So I want to read this story from Joe Vitale. He wrote this in first person, although we can understand it even more. 2 years ago, he said, I heard of a therapist in Hawaii who cured a complete ward of criminally insane patients without ever seeing any of them. The psychologist would study an inmate's chart and then look within himself to see how he created that person's illness. As he healed himself, the patient healed. When I first heard this story, Joe Vitale now, I thought it was an urban legend. How could anyone heal anyone else by healing himself? How could even the best self-improvement master cure the criminally insane? How was that even possible? It didn't make any sense, he said. It wasn't logical. So I dismissed the story. However, I heard it again a year later. I heard that the therapist had used an Hawaiian healing process called Ho'oponopono, which literally means taking total responsibility. I had never heard of it. This is a while ago he wrote this. Yet I couldn't leave it out of my mind. If the story was at all true, I had to know more. The Hawaiian therapist who healed those mentally ill people would teach an advanced new perspective about total responsibility. His name, first name I'm not even going to try to say, Inhaliakala, I said it, Hugh Len. Most people call him Dr. Hugh Len. We probably spent, this is Joe Vitale, we probably spent about an hour talking on the phone. I asked him to tell me the complete story of his work as a therapist. He explained that he worked at Hawaiian State Hospital for 4 years. The ward where they kept the criminally insane was very dangerous. Psychologists quit on a monthly basis. The staff called out sick quite a bit, or they simply quit. People would walk through the halls with their back to the wall for fear of being attacked by the patients. It was not a pleasant place to work, visit, or live. Dr. Len told me that he never saw patients. He agreed to have an office and to review their files. And while he looked at those files, he would work on himself. As he worked on himself, patients began to heal. After a few months, patients that had to be shackled were allowed to walk free. He told me others who had been heavily medicated gradually went off their medication, and those who had no chance of ever being released were being freed. I was in awe. Not only that, he went on, but the staff all began to show up. Absenteeism and turnover disappeared. We ended up with more staff than we needed because the patients were being released. And all the staff were showing up to work. And today that ward is closed. This is where, Joe Vitale, I had to ask the million-dollar question, what were you doing within yourself that caused these people to change? I was simply healing that part of me that created them, he said. I didn't understand. Dr. Len explained that total responsibility for your life means that in anything that is in your life, simply because it is your life, it is your responsibility. In a literal term, the entire world is your creation. Wow, said Joe Vitale. That's tough to swallow, right? Think about that. I don't know. Being responsible for what I say or do is one thing. Being responsible for what everyone in my life says or does is quite another. And I know this is tough, he says, to grasp, let alone accept and actually live. Blame is far easier than total responsibility. But as I spoke with Dr. Len, I began to realize that healing for him and in the Ho'oponopono practice means loving yourself. Loving yourself so fully. If you want to improve your life, you have to heal your life. If you want, this is Joe Vitale, if you want to cure anyone, even a mentally ill criminal, you have to do the healing within yourself. I asked Dr. Hugh Len how he went about healing himself. What was he doing exactly? When he looked at those patients' files, I kept saying, he said, I'm sorry, I love you, to no one in particular, over and over again. I'm sorry, I love you. If you ever, those are very powerful. It's like a mantra, keep saying them. I'm sorry, I love you. I didn't say it to anyone in particular, Dr. Len said. I was simply evoking the spirit of love to heal within me what was creating the outer circumstances. That's it, Joe Vitale. That's it, Hugh Len. Whenever you want to improve anything in your life, there is only one place. There's only one place to go, and that is inside you. Inside you. And when you look, do it with love, because self-love is the healing. It's the greatest way to work, to heal yourself, and then you start healing your world and everyone that is in the world. And I will add, and you create, in that time, you create blessed relationships. Whenever you want to improve anything that is in your life, this is simple, but it is also radical, I think. And so the full prayer, it is a Hawaiian prayer. You can look it up. I looked it up again. Yes, and this is true. The full prayer is, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. And you're saying it to your own thoughts, to your own self, over and over again. And You don't have to believe Dr. Hugh Len, you don't have to believe me. You can believe it when you try it for yourself and see how that works.